Hello and welcome back to another build video by yours truly. Hope you're all doing well in this crazy world we're living in now. I had recorded this build video previously and my mic was bad, and I'm hoping that my mic sounds better now because I just got a new headset. So hopefully you guys will be able to hear me clearly. I am going to give you not one build, not two builds, not three builds, not four builds, but 5 builds. And I'm going to start it off with my favorite build right now for the Void Gauntlet that I've been able to both heal up to Mutator 7 as well as DPS in Mutator 7. That's right, with one build. I can be main healer or I can be DPS. And that kind of flexibility is great to have in Mutators, having backup heals if you're being a DPS. Or being able to be a main healer that dishes out some solid DPS. You're not going to top the damage charts by any means with this first build, but it is a versatile build, and I like it a lot for Void Gauntlet. It's a lot of fun to play, and so let's get into that one first. So basically, the way I like to set it up is I like to set my equipment up in kind of a modular fashion, right? So I want to be able to swap things out easily and reuse equipment for various builds, right? So for this one, I've set it up so that I've got intelligence matched up with a relevant intelligence build. Since Void Blade scales primarily the damage off of intelligence, I get the weapon skill Voracious Blade with the intelligence on that piece. So this is the first piece, right? Second piece, and you're going to want that Voracious Blade so that you get your health back whenever you're below 50% health and you're using your Void Blade, which you'll be using a lot with this build. And that'll heal you for 31% plus more from the life steals that I'll show you in a little bit. So even though you're wearing light armor, and you can see I'm at lightweight here, and I do that so I do more damage, and I also get 30% bonus healing, I'm still able to get my health back pretty quickly, and between that and health pots, I can usually keep myself alive despite being in light armor. But you need quick reflexes with this build. You definitely can die. If you have any doubt about the ability of this build, feel free to watch some of the videos that I posted of Lazarus and Genesis gold run. So I've definitely gold run or golded both Lazarus and Genesis at M7 with this build. The next piece of equipment is the chest piece, and I have slowing tether on that because I'm using tether for the PVE build. For PvP, that switches to petrifying scream. We'll get into that later. This piece, unfortunately, I wasn't able to find one with slowing tether, a chest piece with slowing tether that was legendary that had intelligence only. I would prefer for this to be intelligence, but so be it. And you can swap around whichever weapon perks you want, but just associate like intelligence with the Void Gauntlet abilities and focus with the life staff abilities so that you can swap things out easily. Next ability that you want to get is Revitalizing Beacon. So you can see I've associated that with focus because it's a life staff ability, and so I get focus on that piece of equipment so that I can swap it out and always have the focus that I need if I want to run a healer. The fourth piece of equipment that you're going to want to run is Nullifying Oblivion. Again, that's a Void Gauntlet ability, and that you would want to have on an intelligence piece. Now, these are not the ideal perks by any means for anything. All I'm going for is intelligence and the weapon skill on something that's legendary so that I can gear it up in a mutator. With Nullifying Oblivion, when you activate Oblivion, it removes buffs from enemies within the radius. So that's pretty handy, both in PvE and in PvP. The next and final piece of the armor set is Fortifying Sacred Ground, which is a great ability for Sacred Ground. It gives everybody about 10% damage reduction that's standing in your Sacred Ground, so that's a pretty handy one to have. And Sacred Ground is a great ability, so obviously with Life Staff I'm going to be running Beacon and Sacred Ground. For my amulets, I tend to want to be able to use my amulets for every single build, right? And so because of that, I go for Constitution on all of my amulets and rings and earrings and whatnot. I always go for Constitution. So try and get Constitution if you can. For your amulet, I recommend getting Divine and Health if you can get it. I would also like to get Refreshing if I could, but I haven't been lucky enough to roll something quite that epic yet. But this is a pretty good trinket. I'm happy with this one. For the old ring, again, here I would prefer that this be all Constitution. Unfortunately, the legendary that I was able to find was Focus Constitution. If I can get a Constitution one, then I will. This one has Leeching and Keen Awareness is what I was going for here. It's also kind of nice because I have Crippling on it, which so any of the slows that I do last for a little bit longer. So that's actually kind of handy. I would prefer that this would be a Leeching, Keen Awareness Sacred Ring with Constitution. If I could find one of those, I would pay 150,000 gold for something like that. But unfortunately, those are really hard to find. But you really want to make sure you get Leeching and Keen Awareness. If you can't get a legendary, then try and at least get those two. For the earring, basically this was just a legendary that I was able to get that had Refreshing Toast. So I like Refreshing Toast. The Mana Toast is also kind of handy with this build. But really I was just going for a legendary that had Refreshing Toast. There are other better perks on earrings, but I'm just using this for now because it was a legendary. So it's good enough for now. So just get a legendary with 25 con and Refreshing Toast, and you should be good. If you can get other better perks, awesome. If not, don't worry about it too much. For the Void Gauntlet, I am currently using Nothingness. This is one that any Arcanist who is 200 skill can craft fairly easily. It's tradable, so if you need a legendary Void Gauntlet, I would recommend just having somebody craft you this one. It's got Life Stealing, which is a great perk again for this build, combined with the Ring, combined with Void Blade, you're getting a lot of health back. It also has Enchanted, so that light and heavy attacks deal more damage, and when you kill something, you get a little bit of mana back. Now, this one is handy, but there are better Void Gauntlets out there. My ideal Void Gauntlet would be Life Stealing, Keen, and one either Enchanted or Refreshing attacks. I can't remember the one where your light and heavy attacks reduce cooldowns, or Blessed, so that your Void Gauntlet heals do more healing. One of those three effects would probably be my choice, or like Life Stealing, Keen, and Vicious would also be good, right? Or Life Stealing, Keen, and Keenly Empowered. Like, if you can get one of those, anything with Life Stealing and Keen would be superior, because critical hits are really important for this build, and we'll get into that in a minute too. The last thing I'm using is for my Life Staff, Will of the Ancients. It drops in Laz. It's pretty easy to get. It drops all the time. So you get refreshing moves, so light and heavy attacks reduce your active weapon cooldowns. It's refreshing, so it's reducing your cooldowns, and it's blessed, so even better. So for a healing staff, this is about as good as it gets. And you'll see, with Nothingness, unfortunately, you've got a split stat between Intelligence and Focus. Ideally, you'd want all Intelligence on your Void Gauntlet, but it's fine. And for the Life Staff, ideally, you want all Focus, right? So you can see we've got a pretty good build out. And I'm now at 619 gear score, so I'm not just talking. This is not theory crafting. It actually works pretty well in practice. All right, so let's get into stats. So the stats you're going to want to go for it, and this is going to seem like out of the norm. I look for builds that are effective, not builds that are necessarily the meta, right? Like, I like doing things differently and coming up with things that work really, really well for the way that I like to play. And so for this one, you can see I'm using stat food, so you can see where the stats end up. You'll use 40 stat food, get whichever one you want for a split. I use the Constitution Focus food because it's pretty cheap to get on my server. You can run pure Constitution, you can run pure Focus, you can run pure Int. It's really up to you. You got enough stats to play around with there. But your end resulting stats for mine, first you're going to want to make sure you have 150 Constitution at all times. You're also going to make sure you have 250 Focus. Now, what? 250 Focus? Why not 300 Focus? You're not really a healer unless you're running 300 Focus. Well, wrong. I already told you I can heal with this build in Mutator 7 so far with no issues. So you don't need 300 focus, and the only benefit that you really get from that, you get a little bit of a bump in healing, but your mana regen, when it drops below, it's going to be 15% soon or something like 10%. You get more mana regen, so great. Like, it's the additional healing and that effect are not worth giving up 50 int in Void Gauntlet, which is what you're going to use to be doing DPS. Void Gauntlet scales primarily off of intelligence, right? And so you get 10% more critical hit damage. You're critting a lot with this, particularly if you can get a Void Gauntlet keen on it. And so you're going to be doing a lot more damage with this more consistently. Plus, that 50 points in intelligence is huge for damage. You can see my Void Gauntlet is 600 or 962 damage right now. The other thing you're going to want to do with this build is make sure that you're running an Arboreal gem, which causes 50% of your damage to be converted to nature, and that 50% scales off of focus, right? Which is why my weapon damage is so high with this build, even though I've got primarily most of my points in focus, right? In terms of the skills that you're going to want to use, for the Void Gauntlet, this is what I run for PvE. I'll show you the PvP build later. I use different equipment. This is the PvE build and what I use, right? So all I need from Decay, the only reason I get this point really is so that I can get down here to Baleful Tether. Baleful Tether is a skill that everybody is sleeping on. It's incredibly good, right? This not only weakens the enemy that you target by 20%, it gives you a 20% in power, making you deal 20% more damage, right? It also, every successful hit against the target reduces your cooldown on Void Gauntlet abilities by 5%, and you swing really, really quickly with Void Blade. So with this ability and what I've got over here, I'm able to keep Baleful Tether, Oblivion, and Void Blade up constantly. Like, I'm never waiting for a cooldown and these effects are off. I can keep these up all the time. So it's amazing, right? Plus you're getting 100% mana regen while the tether is active, which also helps. You can regenerate quite a bit of mana and keep the abilities running. I do chug a lot of mana pots, no doubt about it, because I don't want to sit there and drain my health during a fight. I want to put out as much DPS as possible, but this definitely helps, right? This last one here, Soul Eater, it's not really worth it. It's just a 80% heal on yourself. It does heal for quite a bit, but it's only if the target dies, and usually I'm using this, tossing this on a boss, or an elite mob, or a mini boss, or something like that. So, it's not dying as quickly, so I don't get a whole lot of benefit from this last point, so it's okay to give that up in order to get the rest of this, right? So that's one change from my previous build. I swapped this point out of Soul Eater into Forsaken Pact to give an extra 10% damage while I'm below 50% mana, which I am quite often. Next, what you're going to want to make sure is you get the Void Blade, and you're going to want to get all of the abilities of Void Blade. And Void Blade is amazing, right? It hits really quickly. The attacks inflict Disintegrate, which causes you to deal 5% more damage per stack, and it stacks up to 3 times, right? And so you also get a stacking dot on it, which deals, at 3 stacks, 15% rampant damage per second. So you're dotting, you're causing them to take more damage from the entire group, right? So this is a great group build, support build. And, when you first pop it, you get 5 seconds of Fortify and cooldown. So you think, 23 seconds, that's not that great. But with Baleful Tether, you're getting this Fortified Blade, pretty much whenever you want that Fortify. You can pretty much just repop your Void Blade, and then you got to Fortify for 5 seconds. Also, because you're a crit build, you're going to be doing 10% critical damage on Void Blade attacks, so more damage for Void Blade, which is great. You can also heal yourself with thrust attacks, so if you do a heavy attack with the Void Blade, you'll be healing yourself for 15% of the damage done, plus what you get from leeching, right? So you got 2 leeching effects, one from your Void Gauntlet, one from your ring, which is another 10%, so 15%, 10% plus 15% is 25% of the damage done. Plus, where is the one? it's here on critical hit, gain health equal to 15% of the damage done, so you get another 15% of your damage if you crit on that heavy attack. So you get quite a bit of health back from heavy attacks, and heavy attacks are actually pretty good with this build. You also get a 10% cooldown reduction on all abilities when you critical hit, so again, crit build is very important for this. And you have a 10% critical chance above 50 health, and you're above 50% health kind of all the time, right? You also want 5% cooldown reduction on all abilities when you hit enemies afflicted with 3 or more debuff stacks. And you'll have this debuff, you'll have 3 stacks of Disintegrate, you'll also have a debuff from Oblivion, so you're going to have 3 stacks of debuffs on everything. And that's not, it can be from anything, it can be from your teammates, whatever. But in terms of cooldown reduction, you're getting 5% more here. So your cooldowns are up all the time. You also gain Empower when you cast abilities within 5 meters of an enemy. So this can stack up to 3 times. Guess what? You're casting your abilities pretty constantly, so you're going to have a 30% Empower here. You also have 10% additional critical chance when all your abilities are on cooldown. So if you're cycling these as quickly as you can, guess what? You're getting 10% more critical chance, which only helps the overall thing. And, you know, if you're below mana, like I said, you get 10% more damage. Now, the last one here is Oblivion. And Oblivion is amazing for groups. Not a lot of groups realize how powerful this is. My advice is to run with a melee group, a melee-heavy group. You know, I tend to run 2 melee, me, a tank, and, you know, then a ranged DPS, or, you know, 3... melee DPS, right? And we just obliterate enemies. So, you know, Chartis and Laz, we have to stop DPS for a while, waiting for him to do his second beam attack, so he falls down, so we get the damage buff, rather than just like bursting him down the entire time, right? We have to actually wait for that phase to hit, because we're putting out so much damage as a group. Because of Oblivion. And Oblivion gives it 20% in power to everybody who is inside the Oblivion. So tell your group to stand inside the Oblivion. It's very important. You're also doing 30% weapon damage per second with that, and you're stripping the enemy buffs, and your attacks inflict weakened targets that are inside the Oblivion radius. So guess what? Not only are you dropping their damage by 20%, you're dropping their damage by an additional 15% from Withering Oblivion. Because you're going to be swinging light attacks with Void Blade pretty quick, and you get 3 stacks, no problem. Right? The last thing that you also get is 15 additional stamina per second for self and friendly. So if your tank is also standing in the Oblivion, guess what? They're going to be able to stand there with their shield up and not have to worry about the stamina loss from them getting hit. Now, the last ability here is why this build works so well as a healing build. And it's Void Color. And people don't seem to realize how quickly you get 6 stacks when you're swinging light attacks with Void Blade, right? You can pop this pretty much within 5-6 seconds of turning on your Void Blade, right? And at 6 stacks, you gain a 3-meter aura that heals self and friendlies for 30% weapon damage per second, and it scales with focus, right? So this is like it's on a 20-second cooldown, right? So this is like a free Sacred Ground every 20 seconds, and it lasts 5 seconds, so it heals over time and does about as much healing for me as my Sacred Ground heals. So if anybody's within range of this, they're getting a free Sacred Ground heal with this. And on Chartis, I tend not to even bother with my life staff, even if I'm main healer. I just let Void Color do all the healing that's needed, right? The next thing that you're going to want to do is also pay attention to the fact that it deals 30% weapon damage per second to enemies that are within it. So you're getting an additional dot on top of everything else. So when you get everything working, you're doing all kinds of damage. Now let me talk about the life staff abilities real quick. This is what I run in most dungeons. If you get, the one change that I would consider making here is if you get Festering as one of the mutations in the Mutator dungeon, then it's worth swapping out your Orb of Protection for Splash of Light. And this is handy for healing ranged people that are in your group. Somebody's using a bow or a musket or something like that, out of range of your other heals. This can kind of help top them up and make it a bit easier. But really, what you're after is this purify here, because Splash of Light will remove one debuff if it's healing somebody. So chances are, if you get Fester in the group, you can pop this Splash of Light. It's got a quick cooldown, right? 14 seconds. You can pop the Splash of Light, you give them for about 2k, and you remove the Fester from them, so they take a lot less damage, right? And the healing will do more. So if you've got Festering Mutation, I would recommend actually dropping Orb of Protection and getting Splash of Light. That said, I have healed with this build as is in Mutator 7 with no problems. We built it. So you don't necessarily need Splash of Light with Purify, but that is a handy thing to pick up if you're struggling a little bit. So what do you pick up? You get Absolved, so you don't spend mana for like heavy attacks. Heavy attacks can remove debuff. That's kind of handy if you put yourself behind enemy or behind teammates. You can wipe their Fester this way too, so that's one of the ways it works without this Splash of Light. Blissful Touch, also your light attacks as they pass through an ally will heal a little bit. And of course, Sacred Ground, so heals over time. You want to get all 3 points on this. They get more healing for standing in it. They get stamina and mana back faster. Also, this one is important to get your cooldowns to recycle faster. So every time you light attack, you reduce life staff ability cooldowns. And then you also have Intensify. And I like this one a lot. I think a lot of people don't realize how good this is. But if you hit with a heavy attack, you get 10% bonus. You can stack that 3 times with your other perks and whatnot. This ends up being, really, really good. So you're doing a lot of healing. In between, you also dodge a little bit, so you get Unlight here. And you'll do 20% more effect on your healing abilities just by tossing out a dodge every 5 seconds, right? If you're using your life staff, right? If you're in a situation where you use your life staff. So that's 50 additional healing percent from those 2 perks. Totally worth picking up. It's easy enough to get off the heavy attacks. Not a big issue. That's I recommend that. Orb of Protection, you get all 3 perks for that as well. So you not only fortify them, and it lasts for a good long time. The fortify does 20 seconds. You'll also heal an ally for 10% scaling. And this basically it hits in a small AoE. So everybody who's in the AoE gets the benefit of that, and you also gain fortifying recovery. So this is actually really powerful. I like it a lot. For Protector Strength, also this one you're always going to have buffs with this build, no doubt about it. All you have to do is dodge, and then you've got a buff, and you're healing for 10% more. So there's 10% more healing on top of everything else. Then you get Beacon. Right, so you shoot out a light projectile that heals over time. The heal doesn't start out all that great, but with this huge AoE effect in the rest of the abilities, this is awesome, right? So it lasts 15 seconds, right? So 10 seconds there plus an additional 5 seconds. The cooldown is 33 seconds. But with all of your cooldown reduction, you can pretty much keep Beacon up most of the time. Now this ability here, this point here, I've got the haste. I actually kind of want to drop the haste and put in Protector's Touch instead. I should actually do that next time with Respect. So I would move that point over to Protector's Touch to get Fortify on yourself, so you take a little bit even less damage. And then the Glowing Focus causes your buffs to last 20% longer. Good ability to have. And so the way the rotation works for this one, basically, whether I'm healing or tanking, right? I start out with a heavy attack, right? I launch that, dodge, plant my circle on the tank, right? Then I can go in. Didn't actually work. Why did that not tether? I'll try and tether again. So you have the heals ticking away. You have the heals ticking away. Wow, the tether is not working. All right, so you're going to miss out. Apparently, tether doesn't work on these guys, so I'm going to have to just go with it. But you can see I'm hitting for, about 1,188. If I had the tether going, I'm now at 1,337. Twice, right? It's hitting twice. Void, half nature. So pretty good damage output. If I had the tether going as well, I'd be doing an additional 20% on top of that. So, and you can see even with no tether going, you can see my cooldowns are dropping pretty quick, right? With tether going, I wouldn't have had to wait for the Oblivion. I would have been able to recast it as soon as it dropped, right? So your cooldowns are always off cooldown, basically, as long as you can get the tether on the thing. You got to be a little bit careful with the tether aim. Some bosses are a little bit finicky where you hit them with it, but as long as you've got the tether up, your cooldowns happen so quickly that you don't even need to worry about it. So that's my favorite build for PvE. I love it. You can DPS, you can heal, you're a great contribution to the team. Highly recommend you try it out, even if you're skeptical. And I know, like, people like Orb of Decay, I can heal people and do damage. Yep, well, guess what? With Void Blade and Void Collar, you can do a shitload more damage, and you can heal people as well. And in my opinion, a heal over time is actually, that's mobile, that moves with you, is actually better than a one-shot Orb of Decay, right? The other one that people like is the Essence Rupture. Like, the only thing that I might consider doing differently is somehow figuring out a way to get Essence Rupture in the build. It is pretty handy. Essence Rupture is a great ability. I do like it a lot, but I'm even without Essence Rupture, I put out enough healing that I can get into the group as main healer in Mutator 7. So you don't need Essence Rupture. It's a good ability. It makes things easier, absolutely, but it's not necessary. This way, you're putting out just a ton more damage, and I think you're a boon to the group overall, much, much more so. You're reducing the boss damage output by 35%. You're healing the group. You're buffing the group's damage. You're buffing your own damage. Your cooldowns are always up. It's absolutely amazing. I love this build. So, that said, let's move over to the next build, which is Void Gauntlet, Ice Gauntlet. Now, for Void Gauntlet, Ice Gauntlet, I would recommend using a diamond, because you're not going to be scaling off of focus anymore. You're going to be putting a bunch of points into intelligence, right? And you're also going to need 2 pieces of equipment, one with iced refresh, so Killing Blow with ice spikes. Mighty Spike reduces ice cooldowns by 75%, and Deadly Frost. So Frigid Showers upgrade is active. The Frostbite debuff deals more damage, so you want to pick up those 2, and you can see once again these are intelligence, and they happen to line up with my focus Lifestaff equipment. And so all I'm doing is just swapping out the Lifestaff stuff, swapping in the Lifestaff stuff, and the rest of the equipment all remains the same, right? In PVE, we'll keep the Void Gauntlet the same. In Ice Gauntlet, this is how I build the Ice Gauntlet. So you get Cold Reach, which is just kind of a point that you need to pick up to get Ultimate Chill. So Ice Gauntlet abilities do increase damage to target for 3 seconds, so that one's kind of a nice one. And that's the capstone that you want. Like, it's not as good as this one. I haven't used Ice Pylon. I think after the PTR changes that are coming down, I think Ice Pylon is actually going to get pretty good. So I might change this build up eventually, but for now, this is the build that I recommend. You're going to get Energized Critical, so critical damage increases 10%. Again, you're running a crit heavy build, so you'll be critting a lot, so you'll do more damage. You're going to get the full Ice Spikes, all abilities, so the cooldown is reduced 10% if you hit the Ice Spike. If they're below 30%, you get even more damage. You increase damage 10%. It adds stagger to Path of Spikes, and this one can hit multiple times and do all kinds of interesting stuff. Right? You're also going to want to pick up Critical Frost. Again, increases critical chance by 15%. If they're in a frosted area, that's nice. They will be, because you'll be dropping Ice Storm in the AoE to start. You want to make sure you cast Ice Storm first, because the mana cost is decreased by 80% if you cast this at full mana, right? So that's pretty handy. So cast this ability first. And it ticks, does quite a good deal of damage, and slows enemy. And you increase the amount of damage, the more enemies that are in there. And if you have a good tank, they're going to be bunching up all of the enemies, right? So you get 10% more damage from every enemy. This point here, the blocking stamina, is just because, in my opinion, it's better than Quick Frost at 10% movement speed. Doesn't really matter. But this way, you convert mana to stamina to block while you have an Ice Gauntlet, so that's actually pretty handy. You can block well with an Ice Gauntlet. You'll get the Ice Shower, so that'll slow. It slows them quite a bit. It does damage. The duration is extended, and you also get a movement speed. This is not all that important. I just come all the way down here to get the rend, right? So if you cast this, you can increase the damage that the group is doing to the enemy for 7 seconds, which is kind of nice. So you can drop all of the ice abilities and then switch over to the Void Gauntlet, right? And then if you cast an ability in a frosted area, you're also reducing your Ice Gauntlet abilities by 20%. Right? So it's kind of, you cast this, you're in a frosted area, you cast that, you get a 20% reduction, you get this, hits, reduces, cooldowns by another 75%. So you can keep the abilities moving pretty quickly with this too, and once you get this and this stacked, you're actually doing more damage output to things as well. So with this build, usually what I start out with is that, this, try and trigger that on the enemy, cast Tether, cast Oblivion, and then go ham. And you can see I hit for pretty good damage, right? Light attacks that do, I think I hit 3,700 damage with light attacks, at the peak, and that's just light attacks, right? So your damage output is actually, pretty significant with this build. And all I had to do is change, effectively 4 pieces of equipment to make this work. And I should have redistributed my stats. So let's see what happens if I redistribute my stats. Forgot to do that. Okay. So I'll do even more damage now, right? Alright, I didn't hit the peak quickly enough, but you can see I was putting out like 3,400 damage. The normal hits even are still doing 3,164. And your cooldowns are going to be, again, as you're using baleful tether, your cooldowns are going to be up super fast. So this is a solid DPS build. Again, you're going to want to be pretty evasive. The other thing I'll mention too, and I forgot to, is I'm using Crystalline Curse for this build. And so that gives me Unending Thaw, right? So Frost Effects remains on enemies for 2 seconds after exiting Ice Storm. So that's more of a PvP type of an ability, more than anything. But I do have it on this card. If I could find, a Keen Enchanted Life Stealing, I'd rather have that. But, for purposes of this build, it works fine. Crystalline Curses is if you just have 200 Arcana, so it works. And you'll see that for my Void Gauntlet, I'm switched over to a Diamond now, because that helps with an Intelligence build, whereas the Arboreal Gem works well with the Focus build. So this just gives me more DPS this way. And I've got Keen and keenly empowered on this one, which is pretty good as Void Gauntlet's go. So that one is what I use now. Then, if I want to swap to a Void Gauntlet Fire Staff, pretty much all I have to do is just drop in Petrifying Battle Staff, which you can get from Genesis, Garden of Genesis, and item also can drop it. It's got Keen Vicious below 600. I believe it adds Refreshing at the end if you upgrade this to 600. So that's a very good staff for the fire build. And then again, I just swap out the Ice Gauntlet equipment and swap in Fire Gauntlet equipment or Fire Staff equipment, and I've got my Void still there. So again, I just swapped out 3 pieces of gear, and I've got Void Gauntlet Fire Staff. Right? Now those pieces of equipment are not that great. I don't use Fire Staff a lot. I don't like it a lot, but I upgraded it to see how it would work. You can see these are lower tier items, and that's fine, right? Like they're, I'm just showing build. If eventually I will get both of these in light, and I'll get them crafted at 595 to 600, and I'll have good equipment there. But I'm not bothering with it right now because I just don't. I'd rather run Void Gauntlet Life Staff than any of these builds because it's just a solid mechanic. So in any event, with this one, you're keeping your. And I hope I can actually get up to this. Yeah, you're going to want to be targeting 300 again with this. 150 con, which I'm not quite there yet. So 2 points short of that. With this equipment, if I had better pieces of equipment for the other 2 slots, then I would be able to hit 150 con, 300 con. So this is fine. You get the in terms of weapon mastery in Fire Staff, this is the build that I would recommend. For the Fire Staff for both PVE and PVP, the only thing I might change is to get burnout if I want to escape a little bit easier, but just base burnout is fine. Distance time is good. You can range your enemy and get away if you need to, or you can use it to deal damage, right? So pick up burnout, and in order to get that, you'll have to do Pyromania. So if you are below 50% health, you'll do more damage. Whenever burn deals damage, you get 10% fortify, so those are kind of handy. You can put that point somewhere else if you don't want to fortify, that's fine. I like to fortify. Pick up your burnout and with all in. So all in is pretty good. So for every foe hit, you reduce your cooldowns. Pick up incinerate. Incinerate's a really good ability with this one down here. It hits twice in an AoE around you. Cast time is a bit long. I wish they would give you grit or make the cast time happen faster, but it inflicts burning, it does high weapon damage. Each hit of incinerate causes an additional stack of burning, so you're getting 2 here. And you restore the incinerate damage as your own health, so it makes you a little bit more survivable. That's kind of nice. Also, you're going to want to get this one, so your heavy attacks help reduce cooldowns. You're coming down here to get Clean Mind, so this one, if you're above 50% mana, you gain 5% power, doing more damage, and then you pick up Fireball, right? So shoot a Fireball that deals 140% damage, does a dot, it lasts a bit longer, and it also gives you 10% of your max mana back, and reduces cooldown, so that combo is pretty good. Also, if you're doing light attacks, you can do, that'll inflict burning, so burning stacks up even more. If you haven't taken damage from an attack in a few seconds, you'll do more damage. Your Fire Staff abilities gain an extra 10% critical chance. Heavy attacks don't consume mana, so this is great for getting your cooldowns down. You're just firing off heavy attacks, and while holding a Fire Staff, your critical strike damage is increased 15%, so you're doing more damage. And I like this one better than Reheat. So Reheat's kind of interesting. It does help with mana for Fire Staff, but you have mana pots, right? So you might as well get runes of healing so that if you have this rune on the ground and stand in it, you get 25% more damage, right? So how does this one work, right? You could do heavy attacks. You can see the heavy attacks do a reasonable amount of damage, right? To reduce cooldowns. You could also just inflict burning if you want to stack up some burning. But, you know, oops, I should have stood closer. So all of your abilities hit kind of well, but if you're using your Void Gauntlet, you can see, alright, so base damage, I'm up to 3191, right, if I'm standing in my Oblivion. Now, if I use that first, and then this, let's see what happens. Oops, missed. 3111, which is kind of weird. But, so, the fire ability, the fire rune that you get, doesn't actually benefit your Void Gauntlet damage, unfortunately. Okay. But, you know, it is a handy ability to have if you're casting fire abilities, so I do tend to be like, if I'm fighting something in the PVE group, I do tend to cast the fireball, stand there, do the incinerate. If I have space, I'll do that. And then I'll go back to Void Blade. Right? Void Blade is where most of your damage is. Right? It just hits fast, it does good damage, you get the AoE damage, you get the healing, which isn't as good with intelligence build, but it's still pretty solid. Alright, now, for the PvP build. Alright, for PvP, again, I run Focus Int. So we'll go back to, Void Gauntlet Life Staff. So for PvP, what I like to do is I like to get Orichalcum Heavy Armor, which gives you higher physical resistance because you have a lot of melee damage and a lot of range damage from bows and muskets in PvP. And so I use Physical Ward with this to up my physical damage resistance. So you can see I have 2,115 physical damage resistance with this build. I've still got 1,500 elemental resistance, which is still really good. It's higher than anybody that in medium or light is going to be able to achieve. So you still have good elemental resistance, but you're able to tank those hits a lot better. I've still got the same general approach. Focus and Revitalizing Beacon on one piece, Voracious Blade and Intelligence on another piece. And for this one, though, I switched to Putrefying Scream rather than Slowing Tether. Putrefying Scream is great in PvP. It's getting a nerf, which sucks. So you might even want to consider using Baleful Tether in PvP too. But this does root in sort of a frontal cone in front of you. And so that's an easy way to lock down people and keep them within range of your Void Blade and keep them inside your Oblivion. Right? So for me, I get Putrefying Scream on my PvP gear. And then I've got Fortifying Sacred Ground with Focus. This is Intelligence. Unfortunately for the last piece, which has Nullifying Oblivion, I was only able to find a con piece, but this has Resilient. So ideally what I would want is Intelligence on this one with Resilient, but I'm fine with it for now, how it is. And I would like to have for PvP Resilient on all of these pieces, and ideally they'd be Legendary with Refreshing in them as well. So that's what you want. Weapon skill, Resilient, and then Refreshing if you can get it. Unfortunately, I haven't been that lucky. But you know, this works for me. I'm able to be pretty effective in PvP. I can take on 2 or 3 players at a time, and as long as they're not built like me, or you know, there are certain builds that can lock me down, so I can get heals off and stuff like that. Like Spear is really difficult to fight in PvP. But a lot of the other builds that you run into out in the field are pretty easy to deal with. You know, fire staff and rapier can get away easily. So, you know, the Void Gauntlet's like no threat to somebody who has escapes. All you do is just run away from the Void Blade and get out Oblivion, and, you know, there's nothing a Void Gauntlet user can use. So the people who are crying nerfs for Voidblade, just, you know, like, get out of the Oblivion and outrange the Voidblade, and you've totally shut down a Voidblade user. It's not that difficult, right? But if you're going toe-to-toe with a Voidblade user or a Void Gauntlet user in range of their Voidblade and their Oblivion, then you're kind of an idiot. And you deserve to be chewed up, right? So let's reduce back stats really quick. For this one, again, I would do 250 con, or 150 con, sorry, 250 focus, and put the rest into it. Right? And then you'll respec, and when you respec, you're just going to get this entire tree. Don't need anything from decay. Don't bother with decay. Just get everything over on annihilation. This point here is kind of a waste. So if you really want to do something different, get Fervent Thirst, but whatever. Might as well just do that. Right? Then you got your Oblivion. Then you got your Voidblade. So for this one, it's really kind of up to you. Like, pop your Voidblade first, in my opinion. Drop the Oblivion, and Scream, and then you've got Traps. You've got everything you can sway on. So that is the rotation you can do with this one. And then you've got your backup heals. If they start getting yes on you, cast your heals on yourself, and you'll be fine, right? So you're going to do a lot of healing. You're really tanky. You can actually also, in PvP, you can get up in the, like, on the point or in packs of enemies and drop your Oblivion, which nullifies any healing effects that are inside this Oblivion. So if you drop that where there's a pack of players on a point, if you run up to them and drop your Oblivion, you can just back out after that if you want to, right? But you've just nullified all the healing that they're going to get. And if you time it right with other people, then guess what? You just wipe the group for the opposing side. And so this is a really effective sort of healer that can get in and scrap with other players. And so that's how I like to play it. Right? Like, I like to be using this to take points rather than standing back or you know, sweeping or diving back lines or something like that. Like, I like to get in and try and disrupt points and enemy formations because Oblivion is just amazing for PvP. And you can also, with Petrifying Scream on your gauntlets here, you know, that's putting a disease on the enemy, which reduces the healing that they take in, right? So they're not getting the healing effect. Even if they run out for the next 28 seconds or 10 seconds, they're getting reduced healing. So those are the builds, my friends. I do like Void Blade. I do like Void Gauntlet. I highly recommend that you try this out. It's a really fun playstyle. You know, I still think that 300 strength, 200 con builds are, in my opinion, more effective. But this is a lot of fun to play, and you know, it gives you the opportunity to both heal for your group and a DPS, and so it's not a bad way to go. And I'm going to end it here. I hope you guys liked the video and found it informative. You know, we'll see you back for the next one soon. I'll probably do an Elden Ring build video next, so look forward to that.